Now, I wanted to know if anybody's got any questions with respect to anything, or do I just continue with? I basically want to cover the process of site selection, which is part of due diligence, and I mean, I just basically want to show you exactly all the things that I do before I actually start when I'm actually trying to vet a deal, and or I'm actually trying to find out what I can put on it, how much I can fit on it, and so on. So if anyone's got any questions or there's any deal that you are looking at or you're doing something, feel free to ask. So I'll give you guys a couple of minutes if anybody wants to type in a question or ask me to cover something specific. Otherwise, we'll just get on with our today's webinar, which is all about due diligence and site selection, and obviously the highest best possible use of what I can actually do on a townhouse. Okay. All right. What I wanted to show you was that under this section here, if I go into, I hope it doesn't log me out again. If I just go here, give me 2 seconds. Yep. And I go and click on view course. So under this section here, all we are doing is last webinar I covered all of these things, how to find all the growth suburbs and everything, and today I just wanted to cover a little bits and pieces about the due diligence process. So let's say I've found a site. This is an actual site. I'm actually in planning right now for five two-bedroom townhouses on this site right here. Whoops, it's a little bit. Let me move. So it's this side over here, which is 94 Station Street. This site is actually in council at the moment, and we've applied for a permit. So when I actually looked at it, and we looked at, it actually doesn't let me zoom in. So let me change this so I can zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so that's the size. The first thing that I would do when I'm looking at this, if it comes to me, I mean, is to be able to determine what can I actually put on this site. Unless I know that, I can't even do my numbers. So I have to make sure that I can put something decent on this. So the first thing that I would do, this is just plain Google Maps. I do nothing. I right click on this and I go measure distance, click somewhere, and it gives me a point, and I just measure it. I like this depth because this is about 50 meters depth, which is pretty good. I don't like the, whoa, take this over here, and first thing I do is I measure the area. So that tells me that it's about 765 square meters, so which is quite good because all the other schematics that I've done on past projects and so on, I've always looked for sites that are at least 50 meters in depth. And also up front, I want them to be at least 16 or 18 meters. Now, sometimes you get sites that are 15 meters, but that's fine, which basically tells me that I can actually put something on this. So what we did was initially, we actually tried to put 6 on them. So 6 two-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and a single car garage. And I wanted to show you what they look like initially. So let's just go and... So all I got from the architect as based on schematics was this. So we got this. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and each one of them on the ground floor they were 61 square meters, 53, 53, 71, and the architect said, yeah, that should be fine. But anytime I want to do something, so I would do my numbers on these 6. So if there are 2 bedders and they are 128, so I would just go to the smart feasibility calculator. So let's say That's actually the new smart feasibility calculator. It's actually smarter now. It's actually a lot smarter than the SFC3, which is this one, which you guys have, which you already have access to as part of the course. But this is going to be updated to this very soon. I actually said that last month, but believe it or not, I've been working on it. I started off by tweaking one thing, then I thought, okay, it would be really nice if I could tweak that as well. So I started tweaking, and I had to reconstruct the whole thing from ground up because I've changed the way all the finance works and everything. But now what I've got is a really good version. So it's like an Apple iPhone 7. That's the best iPhone out there. So for unless something will it run on Mac? Have you got Parallels? If you got Parallels, Nathan, it will run on Mac. I use Parallels as well, and the way I do that, the only thing is that I've got Excel versions which don't really protect me, so I package them into an installation file that only runs on a Windows. So if you got Parallels, it will run on Parallels. But this is still another week or so. The moment I fine tune this thing, it'll come to you. But what I wanted to show was this is what I've got. So I've got what I'm playing with is 128, 115, 115, 115, and I think this last one is 71 and hasn't got a number on it. But anyway, we have already now got. I'll show you what we are proposing to put in. So what we are currently going to put in looks something like this. This is what's going into council. So that's the we actually reduced it to 5 because we had a pre-lodgement meeting with the council during my due diligence that I had booked in with the with the vendor that we need about 30 days due diligence on this. In fact, I actually went the 5th week. I mean, after the 30 days, I went 37 days because we didn't actually have all the answers. So I got this due diligence. So we got them designed now. That when we went to the council with some schematics, council said there's no way we'll let you put 6 on it. So we were trying to push the limits. But we've now been able to get away with 5 2-bedders, and the project still works, and that's what it would look like. So this is the first floor plan, and this is the ground floor plan. So single garage, unit, bedroom, ensuite, and on the top we've got another bedroom at the top, and the living's on the first floor. And for 4 units, like 2, 3, unit 2, 3, 4, and 5, we actually managed to put a sky deck. So there's going to be a little decking at the top. There's going to be an area where people will go in, and there's like a lookout point, because when you cross the road from here, there's actually beach on the left side. So that's how we decided to go with this. And what I usually do is I find out all these legends that they've got. I don't know if they've put some numbers here, but I find these numbers where I can find out the total built area for all of these, so I can run my numbers on them. Now, some of the files that I've got here in my Dropbox didn't sync properly, so I can't actually open them, but they do send. So that's why one of the file that has the legend is not, I can't open it for some reason, but I'll show that to you some other time. But what I'm saying is that I would pick these numbers up, and let's say 128, 115, 115, and 115. I'll actually open the old feasibility that I did on this project, and it should show me the exact sizes. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So the initial feasibility that I did on this, something like this, was with these areas, and so that was just 1 unit. Sorry, that's the cost to build that thing. So I've got my numbers here. I'll figure out a way where I can I know what I can sell them for. So in this scenario, I think on a worst case scenario, I think I can move them for 580,000 on an average. So I'll put those numbers in, and just make sure that I've got 5 here, and the purchase price is about 1.1 on this. So it's not that great, but it's pretty good for me. I mean, I've got some margin here on the build side, and those were the sizes that I initially went with, but those sizes have now been scaled back. So I think they would average about 130 or 127, but I'll just leave that here just for the sake of this example. And I'll come down here and I'll do some numbers and see what it looks like. So it shows me, I'll delete that. And there's going to be actually a video. I'll replace the video in the Smart Feasibility Calculator with the new video, and that would have this sheet. And this now takes care of some council contributions in Queensland as well. Earlier I was only going by the way it works in Victoria, so now I've actually incorporated that if you're in Queensland, that's how you calculate your council contributions, and I'll explain that when I explain it in the training video. So I'll look at this and I'll say, okay, I make 500,000, or maybe if I allow just 20,000. I'm not going into too much detail of how all of this works. I'm just putting in some numbers so that we can keep going. So these are the actual numbers. My numbers show that this project has a minimum of 400,000 in profit. So that's my initial due diligence. I'm looking at this block, I'm measuring the stuff, I'm zooming out, I'm looking at what are the things that are close by. The next step would be to actually get all kinds of sales data and put it on here to be able to get a good idea of what I can sell them for. So in this scenario, I did a lot of research. The thing was that there was nothing really comparable that I could get, which was close enough for me to actually say, okay, this is what I'll go with. So we found a few other sites that were sold in the back lane and some there, and we arrived at that number. But usually the correct method of arriving at the number is that you draw a table. This is a table from my 12 unit development, so it's just everything is just sitting there and I'm playing with everything. So it tells me the 12 units are each one is about 137, 120 or in size. Then we've got garage, that's what the size is. The balcony, that's what the size is. The private open space, that's what the size is. And this is basically a sum excluding the private open space. The private open space is actually not built. So it could be your backyard, it could be a balcony. And I don't actually account that into the covered build area because I just don't account that in there, because the cost actually kind of averages among the actual build area, the garage, and so on. So when I total this, it doesn't include private open space, but it includes the area, the garage, the balcony, and I've got a number here. Then what I did was I figured out a way where I could find that I know that the best ones I could sell for 670 and 660. And all I did was I then averaged the rate out by per square meter rate, and then I averaged the whole thing to one number so that I could multiply that with the total built area and arrive at a number which then gave me an average of 450,000. So that's how I would run my numbers to be able to get on it. And it is actually good that you do that, because the moment your project actually goes to a valuer, they'll do exactly the same thing. I wanted to show you this. I just recently got a valuation for this is the valuation for the 12 townhouse development that we will start building sometime in November this year, and they've done exactly that. So if I just scroll down, they look at everything, they total everything, and then they allocate some stuff, then they go down, they do some comparable sales, they split all the development costs and what they look like and so on. And what they do is they find out the residual value of land, which is very similar to the one that you've already got in your feasibility, which is right here. at the bottom. So this is your residual value of land. This is what they find out as well. But they've got a different method, and I've been trying to incorporate that into the project related site value for you guys, so you guys would have all of that. So this will all get automatically populated once you have there. Okay, just 1 second. I've got a message here. I have an opportunity to observe the rollout of an apartment and retail project which is at the marketing and pre-sale stage. The project is 100 kilometers from where I live. As a way to involve in the project rollout, the 2 developers suggested I would find people interested in buying up the plan. That's great, Helena, and welcome to Property Development System. Typically come from within 20-kilometer radius, and the 210 prospects convert to buyers. Okay, what might be the easiest strategy for me to market the project? I'm not planning to spending money on marketing. Okay, Helena, I'll get back to this, and before we end today's session, I will address this question. If you've got anything else, I will answer that as well. But let me just finish this portion. So all these will be incorporated into the new revised financial feasibility application that you guys will get. But I just want to show you the square meter rate that these guys have come up with. And so this is value rate per square meter. This is how they are finding out these rates. They will and they go in a lot more detail. So this is the site value. So they've said, we paid about $13.90 a square meter for a 1906 square meter site. And there are some rentals. There was another table that I'm trying to find in the report which had all these details, which was for the built area, and they had a number there that they multiplied the total built area with in order to get the end value for them. So in this scenario, my valuation was based on this, my valuation was 650. So I did my numbers on 650, and they came back with a valuation of 665, which was really good for me. So, and I did it so that I could, make an informed decision. And if my numbers work at a little bit lower value, I know that the project has some fat in it that it can absorb. So this is something that all of you should be doing in order to do that. And once you get this version number 4, there'll be a lot more details, and the finance calculation is a lot accurate in this. But then again, these are all just basic numbers. There could be some variables, and it tells us how much developer's equity contribution would it require for you to be able to do the project. But it has to be based on different assumptions, and I'll cover that in a different training video that explains how all of these things work. So let's look at this. When I'm actually looking at a site and I'm trying to make sure that the site works for me and the site's fine, I will look at the location, close to transport. This is all basic, but I would also check out the zoning density and find out what the zoning is. So on this, something like this, this is the Victorian site where we can put in the address here and find out what the zoning is. So this is just street and Aspendale, and each state has basically has a similar site where you can actually go and have a look, and it'll tell you what the zoning is, and then you have to check the council's town planning details of what you can do on that zoning. So if I would just wanted to click on basic report, I'll just click on view, and it'll tell me, okay, that's the zone. It's schedule 2 GRZ2 as per Victoria, and what these zones actually do and what's available and not available. So you just click on the schedule part, and it'll show you what you can and cannot do, or what you require the permit for, and so on. So basically what I want to find out is what's the GFA here. So GFA is basically gross floor area. So usually in most sites, Queensland's got LMR, which is low medium density residential. They allow up to 60% of the land value. They allow you to build on 60% of the land value. Now, in some councils in Victoria, they've started pushing it back to 50% coverage, which is killing a lot of deals where developers have overdeveloped, and they've tried to put they basically spoil the neighborhood character. So they want to curb that. Even in this council that I work in, which is Kingston City Council, there's a special zoning which is residential zone 1, and that only allows 50%, and residential zone 2 allows 60%, and then there's also again residential zone 3 that only allows 50% again. So you have to be careful of where the site is. So if I'm trying to put offers on it, I always put at least 21 to 30 days due diligence. And sometimes I would be cheeky, and I admit that, because sometimes they won't give you more than 14 days due diligence, and sometimes 14 days is just not enough. So what I would do is I say, okay, 14 days due diligence, and just before, a day before the due diligence period is over, I'll call my solicitor and say, look, we need another week because we haven't got an answer. Otherwise, sorry, we are out of the contract. And 99% of the time, I will get that extra week. And sometimes I would say, if I still need that information and I can't make it work, I can still extend it for another week. So if you've got an agent involved who doesn't let you, get your 21-day required due diligence or whatever, you push on it and you sign on 14 days, and but a day before you throw in the towel and say, look, we need another week or another couple of weeks, otherwise we are out. And once a vendor's actually got a sale, it is actually difficult to let go of that sale. But I only do it when I absolutely don't have that information, and I really need to know what's going on. But if I've got that information, I can go on conditional after that. But in this scenario, we actually extended it for a couple of weeks because we just couldn't stack these numbers. It just wouldn't work, and we tweaked the designs a few times and so on. But then eventually we decided that, look, I'm just going to go ahead and do this project. It's got 400,000, but yeah, it's a straight build. It's a cheap build. There's not too much in it, so we decided to go ahead and do this. Now, apart from the zoning, other things that I would want to look at are the soil type. But look, the soil type actually comes in after you've got in most scenarios, after you've actually got the planning permit. That's when you go and get your soil test done before you start getting ready for the building permit or the BA or the building approval. That's when soil type kicks in. But if you are, if there is some kind of a doubt, looking at construction in the area, looking at has it got rocks, like some areas in Melbourne, some areas are famous that they've got rock underneath. For example, Ringwood in Melbourne, I know that for sure that Ringwood's got a lot of rocks, and anything that I would do there, I would get the soil test done even before, in my due diligence period, rather than wait right till the end. So but something like this, I already know that there is a lot of development going on everywhere, and there's not a lot to worry about. But where it's kind of a catch-22 situation where you need to take that call on something like this, whether or not I should get a soil test done. If you see problems, if you heard of problems in the area, talk to this is all part of mitigating your risk, because you're trying to make sure that you don't get caught with something that you didn't account for earlier. So that's when the soil test actually kicks in. I would also look at size and shape of the site, which is rectangular, square, or trapezium, or some other kind of stuff, which something that can actually ruin what I'm trying to do. So I look at some sites are smaller at the front and wider at the back. You got to make sure that if you try and put, okay, it's quite big, but it's only got a very small, it's got a narrow opening. And I'll actually give you an example of that. If you look at this side, by the way, this is my neighbor, and I've actually looked at it. This is where I live. This is my house here. This My neighbor's got this funny kind of side. It's quite big. It's actually, I think it's decent side, about 800 square meters or something. But if you see that it's only got a very narrow opening here, and the council will not let you put that. Plus, there is a setback, and if somebody bought this side and wanted to put 3 on it, they would be struggling because of the way the side is shaped. So you have to be careful of what you can and cannot do on a side based on its actual shape. So make sure you've looked at the shape, you looked at the side contours or sloping side. Sloping sides are even, I would rather prefer that it actually slopes from, it's higher up at the back and it slopes down, because the legal point of discharge, which is where the stormwater gets connected into and the sewer gets connected into, is usually in front of the side somewhere. And if the side's higher up and it rolls down, it's easier, because if it's because basically then you don't need a pump to pump stuff uphill. If the side is opposite, for example, it's actually higher from here and actually slopes down at the back, towards the back of the side, it's going to be a problem for you to push the stormwater up, and you'll have to push the sewer up, basically it just adds to more costs. So you need to make sure that all these things, you look at all of these things before you get into it. Also, try and find out where the legal point of discharge is. This is very important. I had to spend $45,000 in extra variations for my project in Brisbane, because the legal point of discharge that was actually right in front of my site had some other services going through, and I couldn't connect, and they had to go up the road to the next one, which cost me more money. And actually, not up the road, they actually had to go middle of the road, where means the work was done on Saturdays, the roads were blocked, and it was actually hooked up to a legal point of discharge that was right in the middle of the road. So it cost me $45,000 to do that. So you need to make sure that all these things, you find them where they are, and you can go to dial before you dig and all that. But what I actually encountered, nobody would have been able to do that, because we did look at dial before you dig. We found out where everything was. The civil engineer designed it to be connected to that legal point of discharge, but in the end it has some services that were right there in the middle, and the new stormwater could not be connected to it. So it had to be run up the road, or sorry, it had to be run in the middle of the road. So those are some things that I would look at, and always remember, if there is if the site is slightly sloping and you're trying to put townhouses on it, you will have to add retaining walls in order to hold those townhouses up. And every retaining wall can easily add 10 to 15,000 or 10 to 12,000 per townhouse to the cost. So those things have to be, you must remember them. You must make sure that you have actually looked at all of those things. Then you've got another thing that I would look at is the vegetation. If there are any significant trees on the side, what kind of trees are they? I come across trees all the time. In fact, now I've got an arborist, and sometimes we we look at a site, we'll spend $600-700 with the arborist, only to find out that tree, they will not let us move it, and there's no point doing that. So I've spent in the last couple of years, if I just look at what I've spent on some sites that didn't come through, it would be close to $35,000. And 25,000 of that actually was only on one side, where we had an option for about a year, and we were trying to stack everything, we were trying to do everything, but we couldn't. But we were out of pocket 25,000. But that was a major development. It was a massive $30 million build, with apartments, with student accommodation. It had, we had a layer of commercial, we had a layer of retail and everything. But between that and other projects, we spend $500-600 here and there, then another $700-800 here and there. We look at sites, just to make sure that the site works and so on. But we every time that happens, there is a new situation that comes forth, and I haven't dealt with that situation. And I work with a builder, and he's been in the industry for 30 years, and he still comes across situations that he's never dealt with before. So every site is different, and but these are the common, most important things that you got to look for when you get into a project. So there's no project, or there's no developer, or there's no builder that'll tell you that they know all the possible scenarios. Now, if someone's been in the industry for 50 years and have been doing that every year, year after year, and has worked on different kinds of sites, different kinds of developments, then there are chances that they would have come across something similar or not. But it is very difficult for any one person to say that I know all the various combinations that can happen. So those are some things. There are contamination issues. We came across a site in Seaford recently, and although they had like a preliminary contamination survey, environmental survey done on that, and but I didn't find that that survey to satisfy, because it used to be a petrol station 6 years ago, and after that they got it cleaned up and everything, and they were trying to sell the site. So I decided not to pursue that site further, because it already has contamination in there. So contaminated sites actually stay on the market for longer. However, people who know what to do with it would actually make them work. But it's a process. It could take you a year to decontaminate the stuff, because where they constantly come in and they keep churning the soil and everything. And the reason I know a little bit about contamination is because at one time we joined forces with another person who was into land remediation. So if you look at this on my website, under services, we have Maven Remediation, where we go in and we get the initial report by consultant. We do all kind of testing and so on. So we were trying to gear up to be able to offer remediation as a service, and we were joining hands with this guy who's done all this kind of work in WA, and but it hasn't really worked out that much. So it just stays on the site. And we didn't pursue it, because I'm obviously not capable of handling something like that. It was that person who was an expert at this, and he was planning to move to Melbourne from Perth, and we were going to do stuff together and so on, but apparently they haven't decided. So that's where it's at. So I understand how remediation works. I understand what's involved, but it could mean 6 months, it could mean 2 years, and people who know how these things work can actually get some really key sites. But I don't recommend anybody starting out to get into this, because it's you never know with these things, and you never know with the environmental department, and you never know what the council may force you to do. So just make sure that you stay away from contaminated sites, period. Unless you've got somebody who can look at them and guide you what can be done, or if the site's got enough potential that'll make you a multi millionaire if you pull it off. That's when I will look at my upside of what I can get into, and if the upside is huge and the risk is something that I can mitigate or accommodate or contain or limit in some way, shape or form, that's when I would actually go for it. Another thing that you have to be careful of is parking issues. Parking issues are all about what are are your parking requirements going to be based on the actual size? So as a thumb rule, if you've got two bedders or a single bedder, in some cases, if you got a single bedder and it's right next to a train station, you can get dispensation, because I did 16 apartments in Fitzroy in Melbourne, and there were 14 two-bedders and two single-bedders. And we got away with getting a dispensation for two single-bedders because the site was from walking distance to everything. It had a walk score of about 96, 98%. And we got a dispensation for not having car parks. But as a general rule, if you do a one-bedroom townhouse or a one-bedroom apartment, you will be asked to provide at least one car park for it. And if you're doing a two-bedder, there's also one car park. But the moment it goes over three bedders to four bedders, it becomes double garage, and you've got to have two car parking. Not only that, the way they design it, I'll just open the design again. Where is my design gone? So something like this, no, not really. Okay, let's look at this. Something like this, they would always mark where, this is the ground floor, isn't it? So see here, there's a visitor car parking requirement. So apart from having a garage, a single garage for all of them, we've got to allow for a visitor car parking. And not only that, what they want is, they don't want these cars to back into the road. They want them to come out with the front of the car first. They basically want all the cars to come out head first. So and they don't want anybody to reverse into the road, which causes accidents and so on. So they would actually allocate something like a visitor car park, or like a turning circle, or somewhere where these cars can actually reverse out and move out with the front of the car exiting first. So these are all the things that are important to look at. So if there is not enough room, so the reason that we actually lost the sixth unit in this development was because there was no room for the sixth unit to actually move out. I'll just see, because I wanted to show you all the things that we tried to do with that site, because we tried to actually put a turntable outside the sixth design. This is us trying to push the limits. I think this is the one? No, this is some other property. Just bear with me 1 second. I didn't plan on showing this to you, but I really want to show this to you because we did try and push the boundary and put a turntable there, and the councils had nothing doing. We can't let you do that. I think this is the one. No, I mean, these were some other plans that we were trying to push the 6-4, and then we tried to put a turntable here, so this car would actually move out on this turntable, and this turntable would actually move so this car would get out. So we tried to do all these things to it, and that's the legend we got, so that I could do some numbers on these things. So but yeah, we got many of these designs on this site because we played around with it a fair bit before we decided that we're going to go with 5 of them on this. So this is in council right now. So going back to what I was saying, when you got these, you've got to make sure that your site actually allows for all of these things. So if this site is actually, for example, if this site was about 14 meters, my size, the width of these townhouses would have been reduced further, which basically means that they would have been even smaller, and I may have decided to put 4 on them. So these are the little things that put pressure on the site in order to maximize them. And if I can put 4 on them, then at 1.1 mil, this project will not stack up. That means I'm paying too much for the land in that scenario. So that's the issue with the parking and what you need to allow for. So it's 0.75 bays per unit for apartments which are less than 60 meters square, and then 1.0 bays for apartments that are greater than 80 meters squares. Then they've got different, every council has different criteria for parkings. Like if you go into the commercial space, it becomes 4 car parks per 100 square meters. So that's why when where we were looking at some sites where we wanted to do mixed use development, we wanted to have a layer of commercial and so on. Every time we tried to put a layer of commercial, what killed the project was the amount of parking that we have to allow the moment we've got a certain square meterage of commercial area, because then I've got to allow for 4 car parks for every 100 square meters, which is another problem. So if I can't accommodate that many number of cars, that means I can't have a commercial there. And so sometimes the sites would allow you to actually go up to 4 levels or 6 levels and so on. But when you realize that, okay, I'll have apartments up to 6 levels, which basically means, oh gosh, I can put maybe 40 apartments there, and then you'll say, okay, how many 2-bedders and how many 3-bedders? And the moment you start taking those numbers out and you say, okay, for that many 2-bedders, I need X amount of car parks, and for that many 3-bedders, I need X amount of car parks. And then you don't want to dig a basement, because the basement would add to the cost of construction. And then you start playing with the car stackers. The project that I did in Fitzroy, the 16 apartments, we actually put a stacker in for 14 car parks. So for 14 single car stacker, we'd actually had to put that in, and which actually costed us about $15,000 per car spot, and that was only for the stacker. So there was other bits of engineering that had to be done, because we had to dig a pit out and make sure that that all these things are taken care of. When I'm evaluating a site, I would also look at the setback. So if the setback is here, it's very easy to actually find out what the setbacks are, and you can do that. Just click on that measure distance, and I don't measure the distance with this one, but I actually just draw a line and see what the setbacks are coming to, and that will give me an idea of what I can do or I can push. So for example, in this scenario, this one is a little bit the setback is a little bit this side has less setback than the one that this side has currently, which basically tells me that I can push it forward when I'm trying to design my townhouses here. So setbacks kill the project. If you've got issues with setbacks, it's the council may not allow you to get there. Not only that, if they won't even allow you to have a second crossover sometimes. There's an issue going on with the 12 Townhouse development side with the council regarding a new crossover. That's another problem. But those are the problems that can be solved in this. So in this industry, you can solve any problem given time and money. So and the biggest thing that you have to make sure is that you don't waste that time and money, because for developers, the most important thing is time and money. Another thing that can kill the project are the easements, special restrictions, and the way to find out the easement is actually, the easiest way to do that is actually to look at the section 32 if you're in Victoria, or a disclosure statement if you're in Queensland, and they must have a copy of the title, the plan of the initial subdivision that took place, and those things actually show you where the easements are, where the setbacks will be, and if the property's got a covenant. For example, the house that I actually live in, it's got a covenant where I can only build the full construction's got to be brick veneer, for example. And that means the first floor and the ground floor all of the building, the exterior of the building has to be brick veneer. And these days, to save on construction costs, builders and developers, they're all building the ground floor to be in bricks. The exterior is all in bricks, but the first floor is all rendered. And but in where I live, it's a different story. It's got to be bricks from top to bottom. So there could be a covenant where you can't, where there's restriction on the size of the subdivision that you could have. There could be all sorts of things. So those are the things that you have to look at in a disclosure statement or a section 32 that tells you about all those details. Okay, traffic flow again. If it's a high density development, I mean, even for a site like this, I would have a traffic report that tells them, okay, it can accommodate 5 units. There'll be 5 cars, and there's not going to cause a traffic jam here. So for smaller developments, it's not an issue. For bigger developments or where the density starts increasing, you got to have a traffic report, and you have to make sure that they can come in, come out, and so on. So some sites would be, for example, if this site had a roundabout right in front of it. Now I have come across sites where, for example, this was the site and the roundabout was right in front of it. Now imagine if I'm putting 6 or 10 3-bedroom townhouses on it. Each house would have 2 car parks, and they've got to come out, and they come out straight at the roundabout. So there will be a traffic issue, and the traffic engineer might say, look, I can't allow more than 6 cars on this location, which basically means you go either 3 3-bedders or you go 6 2-bedders and see if the numbers work. Although the site may allow you to put more, but the traffic is going to be an issue, and that's why what the town planners and the architects call a site like that is that the site's locked. That means that there's no other way to unlock the site, and in those scenarios you've got to make sure that you cover your backside so that you don't get caught out into something that that something's got a roundabout right in front of the site and you're thinking of putting in a high density development there. Your traffic engineer will actually kill you, because you would need that report even before you lodge for DA, because they might even ask you for it if you don't lodge the traffic report, and the traffic report would then say we can't allow X amount of cars on this block. So that and traffic volume is the same. Site access and egress is exactly the same. How you can come in and come out of the site, which is similar to what I just explained. The council doesn't want you to reverse out into the street. They want you to come out head first. So those are the things that you got to look for. And then the council developers contribution, that's actually not really related to the site. But if you are going high density and the size of the sewer is not enough to accommodate for that, the council may push the cost of that sewer upgrade to you. Or for example, something like this, let's say there are 2 crossovers here. I'll show you another example here. So this is the 12 townhouse site that I'm working on at the moment. Hopefully we'll start construction in November. So this is a double block, and the double block's got these 2, and we've got 6 on we've got a permit for 6 on one side and 6 on another side. So see that this is a 1900 square meter site altogether. So now at the moment the current crossover is right here, and another crossover is right here. So the way we've designed the site is actually this crossover is closed, and then there's a crossover right here, and there's a crossover right here. So I've got to close this at my cost. The old ones have to be closed and the new ones have to be created at my cost. Now this is council's land, but I've been asked, because I'm the developer, I've been asked to foot the bill for making sure that the crossover is fine. So those are the things that can cause you trouble. The trouble that I'm having right now is that there's actually a no standing zone somewhere right in front of the site. There's a sign there, and all it is that the no standing. It's only like a 6 inch or 8 inch away. Like I could move the pole 8 inches up the road, and it works for my site. Now the council gave us approval for the site, but now they're raising some issues with it, but we're trying to sort it out, so it should be all right. Yeah, so these are the things that you would want to make sure that you cover in your due diligence. And other things could be if you're trying to do I mean, there are other things that come into due diligence as well when you are trying to find out, when you're trying to do a JV with the landowner, you need to make sure that they haven't got too much, they haven't got a lot of mortgage on the land, or anybody who comes in the project with you hasn't got too much debt, and so on. So these are the things that you have to be careful of when you're assessing a site. Now, if you've got any questions, I'll have a sip and you can ask me all the questions. Okay, I have, if I have found a property, what is the best clause to put in the Q&A so it's subject to council approval? You can, it just depends upon, this is addressing Nathan's question. You can put in your due diligence, you can, when you're negotiating the settlement terms with them, you can say that, look, I'll only settle once I've got the permit. But usually you will not be able to get away with, because vendors are becoming smarter and smarter. But then again, it's all up to negotiation. So if I'm trying to cover my backside by saying that I will only settle if I get the permit, you have to look at it from the vendor's perspective as well. So what's in it for the vendor to let you do that? Now you could say something like, for example, the median house price in the area, for example, for his property, let's say. So let's say his is a 3-bedroom house, single dwelling on a block of land, and you want to negotiate with him and say, I'll settle after I've got the permit. Now you can say, I'll settle 120 days after I've got the permit, so that it starts getting more specific as you start negotiating, because the more ambiguous it is for the vendor, the more they are going to be scared. So what you want to do is, I'll just go and start putting some stuff here so all of you can just put a new one. So let's just open that. Give me 2 seconds. So let's say you can ask for that I will settle 120 days after you've got the permit or DA. You could also say that no matter what, I will apply for a permit within 120 days of signing the contract. So that way they know that if you don't apply for a permit within 120 days, that means they're off the hook. You lose your deposit, or you lose your whatever initial deposit that you have given, or maybe you haven't given the full deposit. So those are the things that you can put in, just to be more specific with what you are trying to do with the vendor. Now you could also say, look, the median, let's say you manage to say, okay, I'll give you the time to get the permit, and then as soon as you got the permit, you got to settle 120 days. But what's in it for them? So you can say something like, let's say the median house price, I'll just put HB, is, let's say 800K at the time for the house that you are buying, or the property that you are buying. But if by the time you've got the permit, the median house price of that block or in that area for single dwelling houses has gone up to, let's say, instead of that, it's gone up to 850K, then you should pay them the 50K. So that's the carrot for them. Now, I'm not saying that it'll go up by 50K by the time you get the permit, but it could. But if it does, then you pay them the uplift. So you will owe them the extra 50K at the time. So that's the carrot that you got to dangle for them in order to negotiate something like this. Now, how do you determine all of this? You could say that you could get a report from CoreLogic, or previously known as RP Data, where you can get a report that prints out the median house price value of that suburb. So you could go anywhere like realestate.com.au or CoreLogic, any free report that you get there. You can put that as basis, and you can actually put that in your terms and conditions of your contract. So that's how you can try and negotiate something like this. And otherwise, to be on a safer side, ask for a longer settlement. If they are not negotiating on any of these things, I would actually not throw any of these things up front. This is something that I use a little bit later. I would simply go in and ask for a longer settlement, as long as I could get 12, 18, or whatever. I have a mentoring student here in Melbourne. He just recently got into a project, and he can put 4 townhouses on this, and he's managed to get a settlement that happens in January 2018. Can you believe that? He sent me all the conditions that he wanted, and we discussed, and I told him those are the conditions that you can get, and he's managed to get the vendor to agree on all of those things. So he's paying 5% deposit, but he does not have to settle until January 2018, which gives him enough time to get his plans and permit, in fact, subdivide the whole thing, and then even do his off-the-plan sales even before he needs to settle on the block of land. And that's how every developer should think and work for, because I'm working on something that another mentoring student of mine got me introduced to. Well, I knew something about. There's another developer in the area who works on similar terms, and I really wanted to get my hands on his contracts, the way he uses it. So I've got another mentoring student here. I think he's attending the webinar. Elaine's here. Hi, Elaine. And Elaine basically managed to get all their contracts. So at the moment, I'm actually studying and deciphering all these conditions in that contract. And once I've got them covered, I'll do a webinar and I'll cover all those things in there, because as soon as if you are able to do developments like that, so let's say you've only got 200,000 to do a development. So, and if that 200,000 goes into one development, you've got no money left to do another development. If you can adopt that model, and if I can understand how that model is actually working and what are the things that need to be there, you guys would be able to do quite a few developments simultaneously without actually putting in any of your money. Because the way their contracts are structured are that they leverage off, you need money to apply for plans and permit for sure. So that'll be about 30K a pop. And if you can negotiate longer settlements like that and execute that model that they are using, and I'm still trying to decipher all the terms and conditions and all the legal stuff, because I have to go to my lawyer after I've studied all of them, and each contract is like a 60-page contract. There's a bill contract, there's a off-the-plan contract, there's a contract with the vendor, all those things. So once I've studied them, I'll sit with my lawyer to make sure that all these things can be executed properly, and then I'll give you the step-by-step of how to do it, because then in 200,000 you can actually do 6 developments instead of 1 development, and you don't put any of your money in the development at all, and you basically leverage off different stages. But that kind of development requires a different kind of design for townhouses, and it requires a skill that you need to develop to negotiate with the vendor. And sometimes you may have the agent involved, sometimes you may not have the agent involved, or you might have to do a letter drop and so on to be able to do that. And it's I will have a full webinar dedicated to that, how to do that so that you guys can do more developments than with your money than just one. And basically leveraging off other people's money, leveraging off the vendor, and leveraging off who the final purchaser, who you're going to sell it to. And in between, you might need to have a little bit of cash to get all the reports and all those things. But it's all about balancing. It's a balancing act between how you balance the vendor and how you actually sell it without actually spending too much of your own money. So it'll be good, and not only that, you save a ton of money on interest. You save a ton of costs on interest and all sorts of things. So it's really good. I'm just trying to read, understand, and perfect that process, and then I'll give it to all my students. So I'll go back to Helena. I think Helena's got a question. Okay, she's got a development that's happening 100 kilometers where she lives, and as a way to get some involvement in the project, roll out the two developers have suggested I could find people interested in buying off the plan. So what the developers are essentially asking you is to find buyers. And I understand that 80% of buyers will come within 20 kilometers, yes, and the 210 prospects convert to buyers, yes. What might be the easiest strategies for me to market the project? Helena, have you got a real estate license or something? Actually, Helena, have you got a mic on your computer? I can actually unmute you and you can talk if you've got a mic, but I'll wait for you to say yes. Okay, you've got a mic. Okay, Helena, I'm actually going to unmute you so we can talk. Okay, Helena, go on.
Oh, hi, Amber. Yes, I only met this couple last Saturday to a property thing, and they are quite experienced from what I gather, and we got on well. So they said, why don't you, as a way of getting involved, see if you can get some interest in people, buying. And so I don't want to spend money on the marketing. And to my way of thinking, I'm just thinking, is this actually a good use of my time and effort? Because most of the people they're going to get are going to come from within 20 k's of their own, of the project, aren't they? I live 100 k's away.
Tell me something, Helena. Would they advertise their project online via an agent?
No, one of the things is, this is interesting, they're not using bank finance because it's too expensive. They're using JV partner agreements to buy everything, every single, the 100 units in this project.
Yeah.
And I'll find out this Friday the details. They're not using bank finance. And the second thing is they were quoted 10% by these new project marketing agents. I don't know how many they went to. So they don't want to do that, but I'm sure you could negotiate a cheaper fee than 10%, couldn't you?
10% is for the agent to actually market their project?
To sell their one of these new project marketing agents, they'd be charged because the units it's not in a major. It's out of Brisbane, and the units are priced to sell between 260 and 280,000, right? It's 2K, which is not a lot of money. So the agents are asking for 30,000 to sell a unit. So they've balked at that, and they're going to be doing the usual domain.com, realestate.com. They've got a website that they've kind of got 3/4 ways there. They're doing Google stuff. They're doing banner ads. And that's all I know at this stage. But how would you go about it, trying to keep costs down for marketing?
A project like that's actually outside of the main city. Number one. Second,
only 20 k's. 20 k's.
Look, 20 k's in Melbourne is actually still city. That's how. I mean, 20k in Melbourne is no issue, but I think 20k in Brisbane is quite in the outskirts or whatever. But at 260, are
It's
these apartments or are these townhouses?
These are two bed, two bath apartments, high spec, one car space. They've got, it's an interesting combo. They've got retail on the bottom. They've got a sort of a hotel concept on the top. Very interesting. Council's extremely supportive. They're the first to be building high rise in that area, but the council's right behind them.
Yeah, because they are trying to bring in more business in that area, which is good. My only concern with this is something like this, where they've got 100 units of these. You got to be a specialized marketer to be able to do that. Now, whoever's asking 10% from this would have ties with financial planners all over the country. They would know everybody, whether they are locally or they will have overseas channels. I know in Melbourne, the 16 apartments that we did go to some specialized project marketers who marketed just apartments, and they charge 5 to 7%, but 10% now, maybe because the market's actually a lot tougher than what it was a year ago, and that's why they are charging 10%. And it won't, or not all of it would actually go into their pocket. I guarantee you that this would go, some of it would fall into the financial planner's hand, or there would be another agent or a third party, or this guy would be dealing with two other agents who would be selling it to, for like everybody would have a share in this. So something like this, you would need to, I don't know, if you go and find somebody to buy something like this, would they give you the 30,000?
No, 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 no. They'll give me a commission, or not a commission because I'm not allowed to sell, but they would give me a sum of money. We haven't discussed that. I was more interested because I'm brand new to the whole project thing, property development, just getting involved in some capacity, right? In some capacity. Now, and I thought, well, is this, I mean, I'm not a marketer. I'm not a marketer. Is this a good way for me to get involved, really?
No, no.
No, I don't think so.
You
I don't think I can add value for myself, other than a waste of time doing letter drops or leaflets or whatever, or going to people and giving out brochures, which is just a waste of time in my view.
Yeah, it is especially project marketing is a very specialized field. Now, if for some reason you were involved with them in the development side of it, it becomes easier for you to sell it. But then again, they would have some sort of an exclusive agreement or something like that with the agent who's charging them 10%, so that they move everything. So they might not have, they might just have one listing. But then again, this is Brisbane, and it's very common for people to have two different listings for the same property. In Melbourne, it's nobody looks at two different listings for the same property. But a short answer is that you would be wasting your time if you try to find them a buyer to buy a unit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
think.
Thanks. I
Yeah,
thought so. I
yeah.
thought so. The other thing is, can you negotiate with these project marketing agencies? How do you negotiate a lower fee? Like 10% seems a lot, and there's a lot of activity up there. They've done huge research into this new university. There's new whopping big supermarkets and roadways and free everything. Right? It's all fantastic. It's all booming. So, could you not negotiate with the agent for a lower fee, or do you think it's there's not a lot of room to negotiate?
If I was them, first thing I would not have all 100 units given to just one agent. So would be, first thing is, it would be a non-exclusive agreement. So if they find a sale, that's when you get paid. If you don't find a sale, my sorry, there are 10 other agents working on the same thing. So
Oh, okay.
I would want a few other people, agents who specialize in something like this, to be working on it. The only way you can negotiate with them, if you've got a better alternative. If you haven't got a better alternative, there's no way that they will bring their commission down. Now you can say, look, all 100 units are available to you, but I've also got them listed with two other agents, one in Melbourne, could be in Sydney, could be somewhere else. And they're also trying to sell it, because as a developer, your first thing is that you got to move them as quick as possible. So I would not do an exclusive with any agent on a number that high. I would have two or three different agents working, and I might be able to negotiate different kind of commission structures with all of them.
Okay. Now, just one final thing. Um, in your view, is it pretty much essential that you use a project marketing specialist for something like this?
For 100 units, yes.
Okay, all right.
For 100 units,
And not
yes.
attempt all these other, because there are a zillion ways you can market out there, including letterbox drops and,
Yeah,
lots
it's
of things. But
there are so many different ways these days. You could go on Facebook, you could have a website, you could have different kind of things like something like this. If I'm look, it's $260,000 and it's two bedders. It's not. I don't think it's an owner occupier thing. Or even if it was an owner occupier, you would be targeting very young families or singles, basically. So I would find the demographics there. You could run ads and target to people who are within that 30, 40 kilometers of that area, who've got high net worth or have got liking for affluent things on Facebook. You could do that on Google AdWords, and people who come to your site, you could put a code in there, and then you can retarget the same people. So say, for example, you came on that website, and I could have an ad that'll follow you for 7 days or something. No matter where you go on the internet, it'll just pop up somewhere. And you could do letter drops, as you said. You could advertise in the local real estate magazine. But then again, moving 100 is a big task, and someone who's specializing in project marketing would already have an established sales channels, like not a single sales channel, would have established sales channels everywhere, all throughout the country, where this project will end up on the desk of so many different financial planners is not funny. So that's how they will move it, and that's why hence the higher commission as well, because there are more than one people involved in order to move this thing.
so you don't think that's too high? 30,000 on a 2,260 or 280K
Look,
property.
on a 260K, 30,000 is too much. It's like they are developers without actually developing or risking anything. It's like they take a big chunk of it, and it hurts. As a developer, it hurts. But 30,000 to 40,000 is normal. I've got this. I know somebody in Sydney, and they do project marketing like that as well, and their fee structure is about 7-8%. And I was doing my numbers on $650,000 $650,000 townhouse, and if I give them 8%, I'm basically giving them $52,000.
Wow.
Which I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll sit on the market with them. It's if I give you 52,000, they've just taken a big chunk of my profit. Like my profit could be only 80 to 100K a unit, and they've taken 50% of it just for selling it. So
So you've got to find other ways to market.
the thing is, how much time have these people got before the clock start ticking or before they start panicking? So how much time have they
I
got?
don't think they own the block of land. They bought it with a view to developing it a year or two ago. They're living in a house on the site, so they own the land, so it's not an issue. They would like to start commencing construction early next year, but in the meantime, they need to either sell as much of the stock as they can, I guess,
I mean,
based on
I'm pretty sure that
off the plan.
to build something like that, if they are selling them for 260, I'm
To
pretty sure
280.
to 280. I'm pretty sure that the cost of construction for something like this would be 180,000.
Do you? Oh, right. Okay, I was wondering that.
That's how they've got that margin. If they pay 30,000 there, They've just made 50,000 a pop, or it could be 40,000 a pop for them as a profit. Multiply that by 100 units. That's a $18 million construction. And
No, it's a $30 million construction. They set it all up by the time they do everything.
yeah, so then they would need a lot of pre-sales, not just a few. The who's funding this $30 million construction has to be a
Well, I don't
lender.
fully understand it because I only met them for an hour on Saturday, and I'm going to find out all day Friday. But my understanding is it's to be done through JV, joint ventures arrangement. Sounds quite interesting, actually, and I'll find out how they propose to get the money. I don't know, but that's the concept behind it.
There could
A
be a
whole stack of
JV on the land
partners.
side where they don't need to settle on the land. So the vendors they don't need to come up with the money to settle on the land.
They don't.
So the
They own the land. They own it. Yeah.
yeah, if they own it, okay, they already own the land. So
I
then it
think,
could
as far as I know.
be a JV with somebody who's gonna maybe their land is unencumbered and their land's got enough equity in it. So, but I still feel that the land won't be worth 20 million. Do you think the land would be
No,
worth 20
no,
million?
God, no, 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 absolutely not.
So they still need
But
to
I'll
cover
find out. I'll
some.
ask you next time. I think that's enough. I was just curious about whether I would have, but you've answered the question. Is a better way for me to participate than trying to get people buying.
How well do you know these people?
I only met them last Saturday at a property
Hmm.
investor type thingo. And they've done developments before, but not of this scale. So they're experienced, but they've not done something this big.
Because something this big is a big kahuna.
Yeah,
It's a big deal. It just depends upon. Look, if they own the land, then they at the moment their interest meter is not ticking. So they can afford to sit on it for 6 months to achieve those pre-sales.
probably, yeah, I would guess. All right, look, thank you very much. I won't take any more of your time, but the marketing is a big thing, at any rate, isn't it? So I hope other
It's
people have gotten a little bit of value out of that.
absolutely it's special. It's a very specialized thing, and especially something like that, which is that big. It is. It's quite big. It becomes highly specialized, and I wouldn't want to do something like that. Even if I'm developing it myself, and the reason is that I don't have those established sales channels already there that the project
Right,
marketer would
that's
have
the
in
key.
place.
Yeah, that is the key. Establish sales channels in place.
That's correct. So if you spent a lot of time creating a big database of investors, if you've already spent a lot of time having some sort of sales channels, like basically some sort of JVs with financial planners, accountants, lawyers, and you've got all those set up, like you've got, let's say you've got these shake hand deals with at least 50 people who are in this industry, like accountants or financial planners, that's when you will say, I can do this and I can move this, and I'll charge 7%.
Oh, right, okay. Well, thank you. That's been an insight, an eye opener for me to even be aware of that. That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
No worries at all. Okay, I've got another. Helena, I'm gonna mute you, so I won't be able to hear you if you talk now. And thank you so much for participating. Okay, I've got another question from Nathan. Have you built 20 units, 3/2s with a pool in the complex? Is this a good idea with a pool or not? This is WA. Um, you're asking me a question where 20 units, whether or not it's a good idea to have a pool with it. Well, it just depends upon your yield, mate. You'll have to allocate some area for the pool, which basically means that that area is not saleable. So every square meter of cost that goes in, on the other hand, has to come out. You have to have enough square meterage that gives you profit per square meter. So the things with car parking, the things with all these amenities that big apartment complexes provide, like a gym for the whole building, or a swimming pool for the whole building, or a community pool and everything. It has to be viable for the developer in terms of costs, where they can actually cover their costs and their profit from the rest of the built space. These things happen with the parking. So say for example, I can build an 18-story building, but gosh, 3 stories of that is just parking, and I don't get nothing for parking. I can only sell the space in the other 15 floors. So I have to make sure that there's a good cost benefit between the two. There's a balance between the two. But having said that, if you think that adding a pool to this 20 townhouse development would increase the value for these townhouses, so that you are giving them something, like you are giving them a place where you are giving them like a whole package. It's not just the townhouse you live in, but it's also a very nice place to live. It's got good amenities. It's got a barbecue area, let's say, right next to the pool, or something. And you think that you can justify the cost for it, because pools cost a lot of money. A small size pool, it's part of my construction company. We are actually building 2 townhouses for somebody else. We're gonna start construction in a month or so, and they wanted to put like a small pool in their backyard, and it was a really small pool. I can't remember the size, but it was very small, and the cost of the pool was about $87,000. Now you have to make sure that you can justify the cost of the pool by developing what you're developing. So yeah, it's whether it's WA or whether it's any other city for that matter, you have to weigh the cost of the built area that gives you the profit per square meter versus the cost per square meter. So once your profit per square meter comes up, and it justifies the pool cost as well, that's when you can go for it. Any other questions anybody would like to ask? Okay. Helena's asking me a question about location. Okay, you mentioned in PDS to build near a train station. What is the maximum distance away from a train station if a good bus service suitable alternative? Helena, as a thumb rule, I try and be within 200 meters of a train station. Could be a bus stop. I'm more inclined towards train station than bus stops, because I think train stations have a lot more perceived value than a simple bus stop, or a shopping center, or like a Woolies or Coles or a supermarket somewhere close by, or cafes or something where normal everyday errands can be done by just walking to them. And that's why I try and find all these developments which are close to train stations, which are close to shopping centers, or a good location. So this project here, this is the one that I'm developing, and that's the train station right here. This is the train station, that's the project, and that's the beach. So I just have to come out here, cross the beach, and I'm here. And not only that, at the end of the year, they're planning to, this train crossing would actually either go underground or go above the road. Either way, it'll open this thing up so that people can just walk to the beach, and that'll increase the value of these townhouses that I'm developing at this stage. So I do look at all of these things, and I try and be within 200 meters. I don't develop too far away. Okay, if I found a property, what is the best clause to put in? So subject to okay, this is good. Okay, sorry, I'm just reading the old one, old question. Any other questions for tonight? Anybody else who would like to ask any more questions? Or otherwise, we'll wrap up for tonight. And I'll have a recording of this webinar added to the webinar section right here at the bottom. Bonuses and webinar, and you guys can access it later. So, all right. I hope you liked today's session, and hopefully in the next webinar I can explain you all of these things and how this thing works. This is actually quite good. Like I was really pleased with it because I meshed it with the funding table that I got from National Australia Bank for the project, and I was able to match it perfectly. My numbers were matched perfectly with their funding table, and they did it themselves, and I did it based on my calculations, and I was pretty proud of myself with something like this. Thank you, Ruth, as well. Thank you. Good night, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.